Welcome, fellow humans! Today I'm going to tell the story of how I became vegetarian at one of the worst possible times. But before I begin, I want to give a quick content warning. Obviously, this video is going to talk about food, and I know that can be an issue for a lot of people. If you have a tendency towards eating disorders, or if you have some neuroses around food, much like I do, this might not be the video you want to watch. So just putting that out there so that you can make your own decisions. Anyhow, a while ago, when I was 14, I was out with my parents at a Chinese restaurant. And I sat down and I placed my order, and I ordered a beef dish. And then, while I was waiting for my food to arrive, I started thinking. A couple of weeks before that, I had been seeing some cows. I had been on a class trip, and I don't remember exactly why I was able to see some cows, but I was standing by a fence and I was kind of not interacting with the cow because I didn't know if that was safe, but being near it and watching it. And in fairness, I did get the impression that cows are very stupid compared to humans, which is usually how I compare things. My point is that I didn't have this connection where I thought, wow, this is a really smart animal that I should respect and not eat. That is not what happened. But it did make me start thinking about cows more. So later on, while I was at the Chinese restaurant, I started to think, I am eating a cow. I saw a cow, and I started to wonder, what exactly am I eating? Because I didn't know at the time. No one had ever told me what meat actually was beyond the basics of I knew that beef was cow. I was eating a part of a cow. But I knew some basic biology, so I started thinking about it, and I went, well, I'm not eating the bone. Obviously, sometimes there are bones when you're eating chicken or whatnot, but you're not generally eating the bones, and it's not the blood. And I'm not eating organs, so what does that leave? I guess I must be eating muscle. And I thought about that, and I thought about how I have muscles, and they're surrounded by like tendons and ligaments and soaking in blood, and it just really disgusted me. I realized that what I was going to be eating was just a piece of an animal that had been cut out of their body and cooked up for me. I had always known this, but I hadn't really thought about it in depth. And once I had thought about it, I just lost my appetite, and I realized I can't bring myself to eat that. It's disgusting. And this is why I consider myself an aesthetic vegetarian. I didn't have some grand ethical reason for why I'm not eating meat. I just find it deeply unappetizing, and I don't want to eat it, and I don't want it near my food. But then I realized I had a problem. My order was still waiting to arrive at the table, and I had ordered a beef dish, and I now realized I can't eat that. And I can't complain to the restaurant. They didn't do anything wrong. I can't just say, I'm really sorry, could I get something else? I'm vegetarian. And they'd be like, but you ordered the beef dish. Why did you order a beef dish if you're vegetarian? And I considered that I could have told my parents. And honestly, if I had told my parents, I'm sure that they would have been supportive. They wouldn't have been happy about it. They might have been a little annoyed, but they probably would have tried to hide that. I'm sure they would have been like, okay, you can order something else, we can get that to go, someone else can eat it. But I just didn't want to tell them that between the span of ordering my dinner and my dinner not even arriving yet, I had become vegetarian. So instead, I just kind of picked at my dinner and maybe ate some of the non-meat parts of it and said that I wasn't feeling well, which I figured was at least kind of true, even if it was more of a mental health thing than a physical health thing. And would later inform my parents that I was vegetarian. And they were very supportive. I don't think they were especially happy about it, because I am a very picky eater and have a lot of neuroses around food. they all connect to why I'm vegetarian. It's basically a toxic purity culture attitude that I have with several different things in my life, and I've tried to combat, but it's really hard for me to eat something if I think of it as disgusting or unclean. And to an extent, that's reasonable and normal, and everyone, or almost everyone, has that to some extent. Toddlers don't always, they'll stick anything in their mouths. But it's very normal to not want to eat disgusting food. But my brain just takes it too far. And I cannot think about eating meat without being completely repulsed by the notion. The other issue I have is that I have overly strong associations in my brain. So once I have a negative association with a food, my brain will always pull it up. Sometimes having these really strong associations can be really useful for memory and for learning different things and being able to remember them at the right times, but it's really annoying for food and is part of why I am an extremely picky eater, which, as I said, my family has been very supportive of. My friends are all very supportive, but it is something that is very annoying. It's annoying to the people around me who want to share meals with me, and it's annoying to me myself, although what I will do is, now that I am a grown up and have a little bit more ability to take care of myself, I will offer to bring my own food to gatherings and try to not make my problems other people's problems. I am perfectly happy for other people to not prepare food for me. And I think that you have to do that. If you have a very limited diet, you should make sure you try to make that your problem and not other people's. And that has only become an even bigger thing since I discovered I'm allergic to corn and am thus allergic to almost all food. But that's a different topic. Anyhow, that's my story of becoming vegetarian, and I felt very, very silly about the timing of it. But I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please click like, and if you know someone who might find it interesting, share it. And if you'd like more similar content, subscribe. And I'd love to read your comments if you have any. I'm curious about if there are that many other aesthetic vegetarians out there. I do know one person who has stated she is vegetarian for similar reasons. Not the neuroses part, but the finding meat unappealing to eat part. And so I'd love to hear more. Thank you.